Well, you're all welcome to part 2 of Naked and Not Ashamed. I'm glad that this is going to be very good, because this time we are going to learn things that we don't really learn out there when we are looking at issues of sexual intimacy or intimacy in marriage. And so we are going to be learning things that my hope and my prayer is that those things we learn will really help us in future. So let's start by sharing a prayer together. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for bringing us to part 2 of Naked and Not Ashamed. We give you all the glory, Lord, and we ask, oh God, that in all things that you will be glorified. We ask, oh God, that even as we explore the information we are going to be learning today, that your Spirit will help us, and that we will learn things from your presence that will help us to have amazing relationships. We give you all the glory, Father, Lord. We just open the gates of heaven, Lord, and we just open it wide, oh God. And we ask, oh God, for that, just that blessings from heaven, oh God. And for everyone that needs to connect tonight, Lord, that you will bring them to connect, oh God, in ways that they will get help. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. How many people, I think almost everybody here, well, not everybody, but almost everybody, you were in part 1. Let me see if I can, not chat, let me see if I can do something here. Okay, now I've given you a permission to unmute yourself. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen for today. So it's going to move back. Good. So we are starting from here, Naked and Not Ashamed, part 2. And before we start, I want to ask those that were, you can unmute yourself. I've given you permission to unmute yourself. For those that were in part 1, can you just, I just want feedback before I start. What was the important things that you took away from part 1? If you were in part 1, can you, and I'm going to stop sharing this for a moment so that I can see you. If you're in part 1, can you share with me 1 or 2 things that, you took away from part 1?
I took away that building intimacy and just this idea of becoming one takes work, and it's a continual process in order to be a garden and not just weeds that just grow out of control. So yeah, that's just idea of that it's a continual process that you have to continually put effort toward that. So yeah.
Good. It's a continuous effort. It's not a happily ever after kind of deal. It's it's something that we work on.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? You were here for part 1 and you want to share something you went away with? Uche, you were here for part 1, right?
Yeah, I came in a bit late, but I just want to share what I took away. I watch the contrast between the beautiful garden and the one that was left to the wild. The key thing is that marriage is intentional. You must be intentional if you want to grow and have such a beautiful garden. And it's work in progress. There's no arrival point. It keeps getting better and better as
like that. It keeps getting better and better. It can get better and better. It's work in progress and there's no arrival point. And yes, and I really like showing that beautiful garden picture. And I think I will still go back and show it because I think it's just such a powerful picture. Let me go ahead and see if I can, just for those that maybe are joining for the first time, because some people that were not part of part one. You know, this I love showing it and I don't get tired of showing it. And let me just share this picture. You know, and one thing we said, you know, is that it's easy. It's not, there's no work in getting our garden to be like this. But in getting our garden to be like this, there is work. You know, it's not just going to happen overnight to have a garden like this. It takes work to start it, and it takes work to maintain it. And I said that is like marital relationship. It takes work to start it. It takes work to maintain it. And so we learned quite a number of things. We learned all of this. And so I will recommend that if this is your first time of joining, I recommend that you go and watch. It's on YouTube. It's on our YouTube channel. That you go and watch the part one. Now, so we're in part two. And today, what we are going to be covering, we are going to be looking at sex, steps to building intimacy, keys to intimacy, sex, the highest level of touch, and then the brain and sex. And, you know, I said the last time that it's interesting that I should have actually put the brain and intimacy, not just sex. So we are going to be really looking at the brain because the reason why that is important is that many people are having problems with sexuality. And it's so funny that, you know, people are not, as you know, people will rather go to learn from pornography, which is the worst thing you want to learn, you know, from. You can't get any form of intimacy education from watching pornography. That is a complete lie from the pit of hell. That people will tell you, go and watch pornography, go and watch blue films in order to learn about sex. Oh my goodness, that is a destroyer of intimacy, of relationship, because what those people are doing has nothing to do with the sex that God designed, with the intimacy that God designed. So please, 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 never, you know, if somebody tells you, oh, that to improve their sex life, they watch porn, you tell them that they are killing intimacy. They might be having, you know, what do you call it? organ sex. The penis is entering into the vagina, and then they are ejaculating, and then there are some level of sensitization. But in relation to the intimacy that God ordained in marriage, that is not the way to go. The way to go is what we are going to be talking about today, which involves the brain. And you will see how important this is in long term, because we are not talking about short-term relationship. Marriage is a long-term relationship. So the first thing we are looking at here is, this is like what you call the standard sexual response. And I'm just a disclaimer, just to apologize from the beginning, that this today might be a bit technical. I'm going to try to really take it slow and break it down in a way that it's not over your head, but it's important that we learn a bit more about the body, because you cannot be living in a body that you know nothing about. And that is unfortunately what is happening in our world today. Many of us really have very little knowledge of the body. And we have been taught to feel that, okay, they are special, that they are specialized group of people that need to know about the body. And then when I have problem with the body, then they are the ones I go to. And so I really don't know anything about my body. It's just like you having a personal car and have no clue on how it functions. And that is going to get you into a lot of trouble. You at least need a basic information about how your car functions. Even if you have a driver driving you, you still need to have a basic, because that driver can leave anytime, anything can happen in the middle of the road. So it's the same way, a basic understanding. And so I'm going to be really talking about a basic understanding of the brain, not the really deep technical one. But in order to understand relationships, you need to understand, because the brain, the mind, is the control center of everything. Everything originates here. Everything, even the feeling in the organs, originates here. Do you know that they found that paraplegias, people that maybe they've lost, people that maybe they had an accident and they have become impotent, when they stimulate certain parts of their brain, they actually can have orgasm by stimulating certain parts of. So telling you that the brain is actually where everything starts from. The feeling that you feel in your organs and in your hands and in your face, everything comes from the brain. That's really where you are feeling it, even though it is now like it is transmitted to the body. But the real place where you are having all these experiences, so whether you are enjoying sex, it's in the brain. Whether you are not enjoying it, it's in here, in your marriage. So that's why I wanted us to have this understanding. Now, this has been created as the normal sexual response circle in a relationship, in sexual relationship, that it starts with a desire. If there's no desire, there cannot be an arousal. If there's no arousal, and that from the level, so there's always a desire. For a lot of people, the problem starts with not having any desire. You will say that happens more with women than with men. You have a lot more women it's like, and as I said, all this goes back again to the brain. Where does desire start from? The brain. And so how can you increase desire in your marriage? Because sexual union is important in marital relationship, and we'll see why as we go on. But where do you start with the desire from? It's not somebody touching your body that makes that desire come. It starts from the brain, and we look at what can be done to increase desire. And then a desire then leads to arousal, and then in arousal, there's a level that gets to a level of plateau. And many people, this is where there's also a problem. A lot of people cannot climb from the level of plateau, especially women, from the level of plateau to the level of orgasm. And in part 3 of this talk, we are going to really focus on what is happening at that level of plateau, to a level of orgasm, and then to a level of refraction. And so you have problems in the level of desire. For a lot of people, they can't bring themselves. And then even when they desire, you have people that have problems with, so there can be problems at each level. I have people, yeah, and we are going to see that, as I said, in part 3, when we are talking about sexual issues, sexual problems and sexual dysfunctions. You have people that have desire disorder. They cannot, some people cannot, some people, because of certain things that has happened in their lives, to desire is just a problem, even in marital relationship. And then for some people, the problem is arousal. You know, you have, and this can happen to both male and female, you know, where there's an arousal problem. Then you have plateau problem where, you know, for male and female also, they get to this plateau and they can't, you know, they either from this plateau, they just come down and premature ejaculation, and or, you know, some women will stay on this plateau and they cannot just go up from that plateau, they come down. And then you now have the level of orgasm and then a level of refraction. And so we are going to be looking more at this in part 3. But I showed us this because it will help us to understand the things that we are going to be talking about. So today we are starting with what helps with desire and arousal in a sexual relationship, in intimacy. I really would like to focus more on intimate, using the word intimacy, because that is really, it's not about sex, it's about intimacy. Sex is just an aspect of intimacy, but the bigger picture of a marital relationship is intimacy. That is what the back that we talked about, that is what God has called us into. And so we go to the level of, so I wanted us to look at desire and arousal today. And we are going to go to the brain. Now, this is a picture that is interesting, that some of you have no clue what this picture is all about. But I'm going to say, look at it, and then I'm going to come back again to it. I'm going to leave it and come back to it, because this is so crucial. This little picture is so important in you understanding intimacy, sexual intimacy in marriage. Now, the part of our brain, there's our brain. So let me jump and I'll come back to it and show you some things here. Now, our part of our brain, so look at the brain here. This is how the brain looks in our head. You have this red part of the brain is the frontal part of, so it's like here, the frontal part of your brain. And in this part of your brain, that is where you have emotional regulation, planning. And that's why sometimes if you are trying to think, you are doing like this, almost like you are hitting, almost like you are trying to activate that thinking. That's where you have thinking, planning, time management, emotional regulation, and all of that is that frontal part of the brain. And the reality is that, and we are going to look at what happens when there are issues with this part of the brain, because that also impacts marriage, impacts intimacy when there are damages. And then you have and then at this level, you have the motor area of the brain. And then you have, this is the motor, and then this is the sensory area. So everything you feel, when I touch you, this is where it is interpreted as touch. So if this part of the brain is dead, if I touch you, that's why you have people that they have this problem that they don't feel. That is, their hand can be on top of fire, on top of a hot plate, and their hand is what do you call it, burning, but they can't feel it. Their hand is on top of a hot plate. I'm sure you've heard about those kind of things. Or somebody says, my leg, I can't feel my leg, even though I am stepping, but I can't feel my leg. That just tells you that the feeling is not in the organ. The feeling is not in the vagina, it's not in the penis. That is the interpretation of it. That's not where it is. The interpretation is here in the brain. And so if something is wrong with the brain, or with interpreting, or with the way you are feeling, even if somebody is touching those organs, you cannot really experience the fullness of the feeling. And that's why even as in sport, you train yourself, you train your brain through training, so that you can have, what you call it, so that you can hold on. What you are training is you can have endurance. What you are training is your brain, is the way your brain responds and your brain reacts. So this part of the brain is called the sensory area, meaning that every experience you have will go to this part and it will be interpreted. It is when it is interpreted, it will now come down and it will come to your hand and it will tell your hand, and move away, that is a hot stove. Or it will tell your penis, if you're a male, penis, go into erection, you are being stimulated. Or you tell the vagina, going to produce fluid, you are being stimulated. This is what tells your body, the other part of your body, what to do. And that is why today we are focusing on this, because if it's not telling your body what to do, your body, no matter how well your body is stimulated, and that's why, if somebody is irritated and is angry, the brain is just in the emotional, the emotional part of the brain is so heightened that it covers this feeling. Even if they are touching you, it can become an irritating experience instead of it being a pleasurable experience. So based on this understanding, let me go back to that initial picture I showed you. So this part of the brain is the sensory part of your brain. And based on this sensory part of your brain, it is interpreted, let me see, so this is the sensory part of your brain. And so according to this sensory part of your brain interprets different areas of your body. And so this lower part of your brain interprets your tongue. This other part of your brain interprets everything that happens to your mouth and face. This other part of your brain interprets everything in your hand. This part of your brain interprets your arm. This part of your brain interprets your hip. This part of your brain interprets your knee. And then this part of your brain interprets your sexual organ. Now, just looking at this, you can see that the part of your brain that is responsible for your sexual organ is so small here. Can you see? Here, that is just this tiny part that interprets sensation from the penis and sensation from the vagina, cervix, nipples, and penis and clitoris, only this small part. The part of your brain that interprets what is happening in your hand is so large. You can see from here to here. The part of your brain that interprets what is happening in your face and in your mouth is from here to here. That is why, please remember this, that is why if you want to have good intimacy, if you go and just start stimulating the penis or the vagina or the nipple, this can be irritating for some people sometimes, because the part of the brain that gets that information is very little. But if you engage the mouth, the face, the hand, the neck, can you see the part of the brain that is sensory, that you are activating? You are activating from here. Can you see my cursor? You are activating from here all the way down to here. If you are touching the mouth, you are kissing the person, you are touching the hand, the neck, you are touching the hand and the finger, you are activating the part of your brain that is activated, that is experiencing the pleasure or the sensation, is 2/3 of your brain. And then look at the feet. The part of the brain of the feet is so close to the organ. For that is why some people, their feet is so sensitive. Look, the foot is even bigger than the organ itself. That's why some people, by just massaging their feet, or and activating their feet, because it's so near to the sexual organ, some people can actually have sexual release by just sitting down and activating their feet. And so understanding this, please, I wish everybody, every male, every female in the world can watch this, can look at this and realize that the part of the body, the part of the brain that is sensitized when you touch the organ is so minuscule, so tiny. And that's why some women will say, why wouldn't some men not understand that? They just come, they just go for the breast. And it's like, I can't even imagine. I don't even feel it's irritating. Because the amount that is involved in that. But look at the side that you have for the hand, for the finger, for the neck, for the lip. And so that brings us to the first picture I showed you, which is this picture. This picture shows that the part of your brain that interprets the senses of the hand and the senses of the tongue and the senses of that interprets stimulation from the hand, stimulation from the tongue and mouth and face, stimulation from the feet is the biggest part of your brain. What does this tell us in intimacy? That real intimacy must involve stimulation of this part, because this is the part that is the biggest stimulation of your body. That is why, people can, that's why people kiss. And it's not just kissing. I mean, when we are talking about in part 3, we will look at, it's not just pouring saliva into another person's mouth that is kissing, that will stimulate. It's not all kissing are not equal. Yes, that is the word. All kissing are not equal. Everything is an art. Everything. To play music is an art. So intimacy is an art. Kissing is an art. Touching is an art. It's not just touching and say, hello, my dear. You just touch the person. Everything in life is an art. To drive is an art. To study and pass is an art. Sexual intimacy is an art. And so the part that your brain that interprets the senses of the hand, the mouth, the feet is the biggest part of your brain. Whereas the part that interprets senses from the penis is so tiny. And so we are going to see how this informs sexual intimacy. And that's how this informs intimacy. Am I making sense to someone? Please, I will love you to, as you are hearing this, just please engage me with your chat. I mean, what is this information to you? What is it? How is it? How are you interpreting this information right now? Engage me. Just looking at this picture and learning that the part of your brain that interprets senses from the organ is so tiny. The part of your brain that interprets senses from your hand, lips, eyes, and feet is 2/3 of your brain, of your whole brain. And so stimulation of those areas can actually lead to more sexual pleasure and intimacy than in stimulation of the penis or vagina. So tell me, what are you thinking with this? Just engage me, please. I'm reading. Somebody said, yes, so much to learn and understand. Wow, I like that, Toyosi. Somebody said, I don't know. I didn't know that. Yes, my dear, I didn't know that before until I took this class and I understood why. I now understood why people are having sexual problems when they just think we have been schooled to think that you want to have sex, just go to the organs and that is it. And, people are having so much problems. Somebody said, great information. I can make a quick comment, a mature adult comment, because it's a mature adult class. Yes, please go ahead. Please, yeah, tell your see.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to shut. I have 2 screens. Hi, thank you for this class. Always very educative sessions. Now, what was I going to say? Wow, okay, so one of the problems I've heard about people who are newly married or Christians in relationships or getting married, and of course, Christians do not engage in premarital sex, but there's that anxiety of, if I get married to this man or to this woman, particularly from women, how do I know that I would be able to enjoy sexual intimacy with them? If I try now, then I would know. But if I don't try, what if it's all, all this kind of questions, which I think are valid questions. But it's teaching me something, because I remember someone said to me, making love, it's not about just sex, it's intimacy. It's you add your brain and everything. There's a lot of things going on. And the trouble some of the women in the class that I had was someone was saying, I think they probably had sex before marriage or whatever. And they were like, well, I'm not sure I want to be with him because he's, as I said, it's a mature comment because it's a mature class. I'll just go for it. I think that I'll be more comfortable if my partner's jewels were a little bit bigger for me, or a little bit, whatever. So women have worried about that. But I think that, like someone said, and it's along the same lines of what you're teaching us today, is that it's not just about that perhaps if you can engage your mind, your brain to welcome and embrace all that other areas as well, your hands, your feet, your face, your lips, all those kind of things, that perhaps intimacy can still be fulfilling, even if the sexual act itself may not be. For example, if someone has had experience before, usually they have a mental comparison. I think that's why the Bible says don't do it, because you have no comparison and you enjoy it fully. You get what you take what you get and you're happy with it, So I'm thinking that, just to combat that idea where Christian women always worry, what if I don't like it? What if I'm not happy with him? Okay, I used to have sex before and then I stopped. How am I sure I'm going to be happy with this person? That is, this information can be helpful in that area. Obviously, sexual fulfillment, there's a bit more to it than this, maybe just a bit more, because I think this is the law. But this is helpful in helping reassure people in terms of getting married without having tried out having sex with someone. Maybe this is some of the avenues where we can be able to enjoy sexual intimacy. Thank you.
You're welcome. You are so welcome. And we will talk more about that.
You're on mute, madam. Dr. Eni, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm muted?
Oh, you're not, but we can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sorry, maybe it's just me. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Apologies, I can hear you, it's just me, sorry.
Okay, thank you. And you actually, thank you for, I'm liking the fact that we are talking, so it's not just me talking. I'm glad, Toyosi, for that comment, because a lot of times people are so locked up in, I need to see the size, because it's not by size. Just like this picture is showing us, that the part of the brain that is sensitive to the organ is so tiny. And so it's not about whether the organ is large or small, whether the penis is large or small, or the vagina is deep or wide, or the breast is this or that. It's yes, that has an impact, but the impact it has is tiny. Wow. That's what I'm saying. It's not like it is, whether a woman has had 10 children and a woman that has never had it. There's definitely, yes, there's a difference. But the reality, what I'm saying here is that for true sexual intimacy in marriage, that is really a tiny part of what really will make you have a wall socket relationship. Wow. What will make you have a wall socket relationship is what we are going to be talking about. And that whether, and it's not an issue with the size of the organs. Yeah, it's basically an issue with how you are able to use your hand, your feet, your mouth, and your face. How those areas have sensitized in relationship. And we are going to look at the meaning of that. And there's been so much study to show, as I said, that there are parts of your brain that if it is stimulated, people actually experience sexual orgasm. There was a study where this was a crazy study, where this part of the brain, they did it with, is it rats or something? That this part, the brain's part, that part of the brain was stimulated. and then they taught the rat to if you press a lever, that part of the brain will be stimulated that gives sexual pleasure and orgasm, and that this rat will go and continue pressing that lever to the point that the rat forgot food, left food, and just kept on pressing the lever, that just to stimulate that part of the brain to release that sexual pleasure, But thank God that as human, we don't live like that, and but that just tells you. Katie says, my hope is that more ministers and Sunday school teachers will get this education and be informed, train their children and their congregation. That's real salvation. Thank you. And that is part of what I hope you guys will do. I mean, that's why I'm doing this. You are getting it for free. Share it. There's we are uploading it on the YouTube pages. Please don't just watch it. Don't just attend this. The reason I'm spending time to do this is so that this can spread and we can save more lives and we can help more marriages. And so if each person will give the link to the YouTube to 5 people, you know how many people you are going to be helping. So I want to encourage you, please don't just attend, but share it. So let's go on to see. There's so much more to learn, but I just wanted you to understand the importance of this as we go on. And just keep in mind this. And so this is the same picture in another form, just showing you that the size of the body part shows how much space that your brain devotes to processing information from them. Your brain does not devote too much to processing information from your sexual organ. Just take note of that. Your brain does not devote. So let's look at why does your brain devote so much to information from your hand, from your mouth, from your face. Let's take a look at the brain a bit and understand the brain a bit more. The brain is made up of over 100 billion cells that are connected. The brain is made up of this part. You have the frontal part, the temporal part, the occipital part. The occipital lobe is where you see, interpret your sight. The parietal part, that sensory part is around here. And then the motor part, that is when you move your hand and you move your feet and you move your body. It is interpreted along this line. We call it the motor area. And then when you kiss and when you feel, so you can see that the motor area and the sensory area are side by side. And so that's why, when in the act of sex, the motor, there's a movement. You are going, there's a movement in addition to the sensation. So both of them work together. Whether it's out of petting, there's the motor part where you are touching somebody, there's a motor, and then there's the sensory. And then you have the frontal lobe where everything is interpreted. That you make sense of life through this part of your brain. That part is for judgment, creativity, problem solving. And then the parietal lobe, I said, is processing sensory and language. The temporal lobe is where you have hearing and memory and language. And then the occipital is where you see. Your brain has little cells. So that thing you saw, that brain, is made up of living cells. Your brain is not just a lump. It's like butter. It's like the texture of butter. That's why we have this hard skull to protect the brain, because the brain is so sensitive. It's like butter. The hard skull is there. It's called the cranial vault. It's a vault to protect your brain. And we are going to look at how we can damage our brain and how that impacts relationship and sexuality also today. As I said, we are learning a lot today. It's not too late. Please, if you know some people that you need to invite to hear this today, please just send them a text right now and say, please come on, because this will make a difference in someone's life. So even as you are sitting down, you can send the chat to someone and say, please, you need to listen to this. Please save someone's life. So you have the vault, and inside it, you have these living cells that are constantly connecting and constantly releasing charge. And it is this charge that makes them to connect together. So a part of the brain, when they are constantly releasing charges, hold on, sorry, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. We will send the link, the YouTube link. Tokper, please place the YouTube link on the chat for people to see. You know, so your brain is the neurons, those things are called neurons. So the neurons that fire together in a particular area, they grow together. So when you touch me like this, it will send sensation down. So you touch me here, it sends sensation down to a particular, that part of my brain that is sensory for hand. And then when you touch me again, another sensation goes. And when you touch me again, so the more you do this, the more you touch me this way, the more that part of my brain is coding the information of, oh, when you touch my hand, it feels good. And they fire together and they wire together and they become information in which that when you touch me like this, then my body responds like this. And that is why touch is very important. Touching the senses is very important. Sorry, let me go on. It says cells that fire together, wire together. The stronger and more intense the experience, the more likely it is to impact the organization of the brain. So, taking a deep breath though, as you listen, it says the stronger and more intense the experience, the more likely it is to impact the organization of the brain. If the experience is intensely bad, it will impact that fiery because it will, and it continues. It will impact that area of the brain and cause an aversion. That is why you have people who had bad sexual experiences when they were young, either rape or abuse. When they get married, they become very adverse. They have adverse reactions to sexual intimacy because the brain organizes around that continuous adverse experience. It's the same thing in marriage. When in sexuality, you keep having an adverse experience, your brain codes that information, it impacts the organization of that brain, and you begin to have adverse experience. It's the same way when you have a strongly intense good experience, your brain also organizes around it and code it up. And that causes you to want more of it. So your brain is a pleasure, dopamine, everybody is, I'm sorry to say, we all respond to pleasure. And that's why many of us overeat or we drink, we like sugar, you know, the brain likes pleasure. There are pleasure regions, you know, there's a pleasure hormone called dopamine that, you know, once you begin to, you know, just like I said about that rat, the rat kept on pressing on that liver just to get stimulated in the brain. It's the same way when an experience is intensely pleasurable, the brain wires around it, especially when it's consistent, and then the brain begins to go towards it. And that's why you find that people can even remain with abusive relationships, you know, because there are some other underlying pleasurable things that they are getting. And then they continue to stay and bond because there's something outside that overall abuse. So how does this information inform the way you do relationship? Looking at the homunculus, those are the things I want you to begin to think about. Now, another part of the brain is the limbic system, is your emotional brain. You have hippocampus, which is involved in memory. And then you have amygdala, which is involved in emotions, mood, rage, aggression, fear. Hippocampus and amygdala, they all live together in the same place. So emotion and memory go hand in hand. Please remember that, because they are all found here inside this tiny hole. Remember, we said things that live together, they have the tendency to connect when they are very close to each other. Remember when I showed you the organs and the feet, and how some people can actually have an orgasm through stroking their feet, because the feet is very close to the organs. And so, so things that are together, they have a tendency of affecting each other. That is why memory and emotions go hand in hand. Your body will store memory of emotions, whether positive or negative. And so that even when you don't want to bring them up, when a situation happens, the memory will come. And the emotions that you have stored with that memory will come out, because they work together, they are friends. And so, for instance, when you walk by a bakery and you smell bread, and then you remember, and the smell will bring the memory and the emotion of when you ate hot, lovely, soft bread. Just the memory of bread from the oven. For some of you, I don't know if I grew up near a bakery, and when you pass by that bakery, you remember, when you smell, you remember the feel of the bread with a lovely stew or with butter in your mouth. And then this emotion of wanting the bread overwhelms you. And before you know it, you find your feet going towards the bakery. You had no intention before of buying bread, but the memory activated, the smell activated the memory and the emotion. And before you knew it, you were moving towards the bread. It's the same way with intimacy. When there is a good experience, when you remember it, it will kind of incite your emotion and you move towards that thing. But if the memory is bad, it will incite your emotion and then you will move away from it. And that's why in relationship, we want to create positive memories, right? Please, we want to, and we will look at more things. We want to create, because that is how the brain is good. It's important to understand the brain. We want to make good memories, because when we keep making bad memories, it will eventually cause our brain to connect in such a way to begin to move away, to have an adverse reaction. But you know what the good news is? The good news is that the brain is constantly evolving, is constantly, changing. And so even though you had bad experiences before, do you know that you can change it? By and we'll talk more about that. Don't let me jump the gun, but just know that just because I've had bad experiences before, I'm stuck for life. No, that's the amazingness. Let me use a grammar of the brain, that it can rewire if you begin to fire it in a different direction, it begins to rewire again in that new direction. And after a while, the old path is forgotten. Oh, lovely. That's why the Bible says that whoever is born again is a new creation. All things are passed away. Behold, everything has become new. The brain is designed to allow all things to pass away. The brain is designed, but it takes a principle, and we will look at that principle. The principle that causes the old to pass away and causes the new to become your new reality, to become your new virtual reality. Now, the brain has two hemispheres also, the left brain and the right brain. Yes, thank you. You guys are really sending me, yeah, okay, thank you. So heal, yes, that's negative behavior. That is that I know where confectionery, okay, yes, it can, yes, very true. You can, that is the joy, that is the miracle, and that is why counseling helps. That is why, you know, when you talk about things and when you take some active step, that is the miracle of life. That is the miracle of God, that our brain can heal, because, as I said, it's constantly evolving. It's constantly, networks are connecting. It's constantly being stimulated, and, you know, and so that is just the amazing thing. So the left brain, they found that the left part of your brain is for positive emotions, language, approaching new situations or ideas. And the right side of the brain, you know, is where you experience more of the negative emotions, intense emotions, and creativity. Some of us are more left brain and some of us are more right brain. Please, I have those, and I will copy it in the chat when I'm done. Go and do this assessment to just become more self-aware. Are you more left brain or more right brain? We want to be in between, we want to be balanced. Research have shown that more men are more left brain and women are more right brain, you know. But what we want to be in the center, because I don't want to only be experiencing a more of negative emotions. You know, I want to also experience positive emotions. I don't want to only experience, you know, I want to be able to approach new situations and ideas. I don't want to be stuck in one pattern of doing things. Now, this brings us to this part. We are halfway gone. I hope you are enjoying this information. So if you're enjoying it, please give me a thumbs up. If you are on and you're enjoying it, give me a thumbs up. The brain health, this brings me to, if our brain is so important in intimacy, this tells me that my brain health is a priority. My brain health is important. I have to keep my brain healthy. If intimacy is more an issue of the brain, not the issue of the organ, is not an issue of the penis, the vagina, or the breast, is more. That tells me that my problem in marriage is not about the size, is not about how, you know, it's not about the sexual organs. My problem with my intimacy is more to do with my brain. Meaning that we have to look at brain health. And so, great sexual intimacy starts with a healthy brain and mind. Keep your brain healthy doing the following. Number one, keep away from alcohol and too much caffeine consumption. And we are going to see some things. Alcohol affects the brain, affects the frontal lobe, affects your ability, it actually, you know, deadens some of those connectivity, and actually begins to shrink the size of the brain. Some people have been drinking alcohol for so long, they might become Christians, they might get married, but their mental health situation is not in a good state. They need help. I follow, there's a doctor that I study his work. He's called Dr. Amen. He has done thousands and thousands of brain scan, and he's a psychiatrist. And he has eventually, he's so much into marriage, you know, marriage counseling, because he says a lot of couples that come to him that have problems after he does the brain scan, a lot of them have issues with part of their brain also. That's so not all problem is just relational. Some people have problems with brain. He talked about a woman that the husband kept on complaining every time that she's so untidy, blah, 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 you know, and then she used to be tidy, but she's now so untidy. After he did the brain scan, he found out that she had a trauma in the part of the brain that is for organization. And after he now asked, did you have an accident? He now said, yes, 8 years ago, he had a car accident. And that was exactly at the time where the behavior changed. There was also a study about a man that was known to be such a nice, physically, he appeared a nice man. He was a nice person. And then he had an accident. This is a true story. You can actually read it also. He had an accident where a pole entered into his head and came out on top. And after they removed it, they noticed that this man that before was such a nice man became a nasty, that is, the man could not control anything that comes out of his head. I will be honest with you, if we all say what we think about, people will run away from us. The number of things that goes through our brain, but there's a part of our brain that controls, that decides, no, this is not, should not be said. So we restrain. You might be standing and just looking at somebody and you are saying, look at her head, look at her leg, chicken leg. But do you open your mouth and say it? But does not mean that it did not go through your head. We don't say everything. A lot of thoughts, our brain is constantly forming thoughts, but it's not everything, because there's a part of our brain that restrains those thoughts. But then this person that had this accident, that part of the brain was damaged. And so everything, this person had no filter. Everything that the person thinks about, the person says. There are people like that they have no filter. That everything they think about, they say. Do you know how that impacts relationship? And for some of them, it might be because there's a damage or there's a tumor. So don't assume everything is behavioral. That's why don't just keep quiet. Look for help. Never just sit down and just assume. There are people that, you know, I experienced this firsthand. I'm being honest with you, and that helped me. My mother had a brain tumor, had cancer in the brain, and then after the surgery, immediately after the surgery, when they removed the tumor, that same day, hey, it was like war. They were calling us in the hospital that my mother said we have all abandoned her, that she opened the fridge, there was nothing to drink. We sat down and drank everything. It was almost like she was a changed person. By the end of that day, almost everybody was crying. And, you know, everybody was like, what has happened? And then I smiled because I remembered and I started explaining to everybody. I said, the part of, she just had the surgery. I'm sure the part that was cut has to do with the part that has control. And so right now, she needs to relearn it. It's going to take some time for her to relearn that control. You know, that so everything she's thinking about right now, she's just going to be saying it and everybody's getting hurt. What helped everybody was because I was able to explain this. And because I already knew it, I was able to explain what was happening. And and that was so relieving for me, you know. So sometimes the person that you are living with has had a brain trauma, has had issues, either or has used alcohol to destroy certain part of the brain before you guys got married, or has used toxin from mold, from different things. Even allergies can affect the brain. I found out that when I used to have a lot of brain fog, I just used to feel tired. It was difficult to organize or arrange anything. You know, your body is just so heavy. You don't want, it's so difficult to even, you are looking at how am I going to organize this? To organize things becomes very difficult. And so many times I'm saying this, that not everything we should be fighting, we should think it has to do, it's, oh, this person is just bad, this person is just mean. Some things, yes, sometimes we are lazy, it's true, but some people need help. So detoxify your body. You know, we have just finished a detoxification program. I want to encourage for some of you, we are starting another one on the 4th of January. People had an amazing experience. One of the things that people shared during the detoxification was that their brain became clearer. Their brain, they had more clarity. You cannot enjoy intimacy if your brain is foggy. And we will see why very soon. Check food allergies. Food allergies can affect your brain. Feed on brain foods, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, green leafy vegetable. Be thankful for life, laugh and play. Laughter helps to increase your dopamine. Your laughter and play actually increases your pleasure hormone and causes that part of the brain, the person that you are laughing and playing with, you actually begin to bond more with that person. Remember Sarah and Isaac were playing in the garden, and the king saw them playing. Laughter and play will help bonding, will help. Remember, in laughter and play, you are using your hand, you are using your feet, you are running, you are hugging, it helps. You are using those parts. It helps with bonding. It is not until you want to have sex with somebody that you now start laughing and playing. Laughter and play, you need to build that connectivity first in your brain so that it brings up a good feeling, because if you only do it when you want to have sex, that's the only time you play, and then the sex is not good. It's not enjoyable. The brain pairs laughter and play with bad pleasure with you. Do you understand me? So that immediately your spouse sees your hand coming to laughter and play, the brain remembers the bad experience, sexual experience, and the person does not want to do it anymore. And so if the only time you laugh and play is when you want to, as they will call it, as we say, go to Jerusalem, that's the only time you are, hey, how are you, my friend? Come now. If that's the only time you laugh and play, and then that experience is not enjoyable, the brain pairs that experience. Remember, memory, emotion, they go hand in hand. The memory of the laughter and play is paired by the emotion of bad sexual experience, and every other time you now come for laughter and play, the person does not want to do. Exercise is very important because exercise, the brain requires so much oxygen. It's releasing, it's getting stimulated. It's just like your computer. They will say that the CPU, put it in under the fan before AC. In those days, you will put fan behind your CPU because it is releasing heat, because it needs air, it needs aeration. The same way the brain needs a lot of aeration. The brain needs a lot of oxygen. Do you know that the largest amount of blood that your heart pumps, 60% of the blood that your heart pumps first goes to your brain? Because your brain needs energy, it needs nutrients. When we are not exercising, when we are not moving, when we are sitting down, we sit down in the office from morning till night, we are not moving, we sit down in school, we sit down in front of TV, we are reducing energy, we are reducing oxygen to the brain. The brain is not able to connect in ways that it should. Seek for help if there's a mental health issue, like depression, anxiety, PTSD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I want to show you a picture for you to know that what I'm saying is real. This is a MRI. MRIs, many of us know what MRI is. They did an MRI of the brain. The MRI of the brain shows connectivity. So this is the back of the brain, here, like here. And then this is under, if I cut and underneath the brain. You can see the convolution, to show the different part. Now, look at the brain of somebody that has ADHD. Can you see all these holes? All these holes, compare it to this, where there is less hole. This brain now, if information wants to go from the left to right, there is enough connectivity. It will go to the left to right very fast. or it wants to come from up here to down here, there's enough connectivity. Look at this brain. Look at the holes. This is the real MRI brain of somebody. The person, he will be having foggy brain. Look at this image. Look at the hole. If I want to carry information from here to here, or from here to here, how much space, or the information, I want to take information from here to here, it will have to jump through this valley. This is connectivity. You have some people's brain that as a result of drug, as a result of alcohol, tobacco, as a result of even drug that you take, antibiotics and some drugs that you take for fighting one thing or the other, affects the brain. As a result of mold, toxin, their brain has lost connectivity. And as a result of that, they cannot, you're talking to them, it's almost like, your brain, the brain is just not booting well. How do you want to experience connectivity? Look at this brain. This is somebody that had trauma, had an accident. You don't see this thing. I had a fall when I was 2 years old. And like in Africa now, they just I was in coma for a day or two. And then when I woke up, every life continued as usual. But they didn't know that there was already a traumatic brain injury. And those things do not leave. They go on till adulthood, for most part. I just began to notice there were certain things. I started stammering. I was a stutterer for years. I had terrible memory. I didn't know. It was in my adulthood I discovered that experience must have caused a brain damage. How many of us climbed the tree? How many of them climbed the tree when they were young and fell head down, bow? And they just carried them up and nobody checked anything. They just thought everything is normal. Or you were running, hit your head against a wall, boom, you bounce back. Everybody laughed at you and you thought life was normal. Thank God for MRI. Look at this brain. This person did not know he or she was carrying this. Instead, look at this big gully. How will information from here go here? And so there are a lot of people walking about with all kinds of mental health issues because of our lifestyle. Our lifestyle has become more, how will I put it? Accident, we have become more accident prone. If it's not car accident, bicycle accident, because of all our toys, because compared to maybe 50 years ago, we want to go and jump from on top of, somebody will go on top of a cliff and say he wants to jump down. Then we hit his head. Or swimming pool, we want to dive into swimming pool. You go and hit your head. Because of our new lifestyle, our risk-taking lifestyle, there are more accidents. People are hitting their head more than ever before. And people will get up, they will not know that they have caused something. And so this is my call to say, please, if you are noticing a particular pattern that you have talked about, you've complained about, and it's not changing, maybe you need to seek more help. Now, as we begin to round up, this is very interesting, I know. As we begin to round up, because our time, before I round up, let me see, I can see there are so many comments. Let me see some of those comments as I go on. Okay, let me see. Some people say it's, thank you. I'm going to, from time to time, read some of this because it's encouraging. Thank you for the comments. Betty says, Dr. Kuyinu, and I thank you for this inspiring, insightful teaching. Okay. Please check the YouTube. Mrs. Betty, good. I was in a relationship with an Englishman who said everything was on his mind. It was dreadful. Yes, it's dreadful. We need, he might have had a mental health issue. It might and he had also abused alcohol in the past and still managing it, which have been more empathic if I had this knowledge at that time. Some people will say it's spirit. Sometimes it's psychological. Yes. Yes, he abused alcohol. I have pictures of people with depression, their brain. I have pictures of people that abuse alcohol, their brain scan. You can see all the connectivity holes there, you know. Okay, let's go on. I mean, that's why you're finding all of this. Had to believe you had a traumatic fall at 2 years old. You should hear my story. I have gone through a lot to heal, and that's why that is for another day. I actually teach on ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because I had it as a result of the brain injury. And when I found out, I have done a lot of rehabilitation, I have done a lot. And whenever maybe I'm having a talk about that, I will want to have a talk, because a lot of people have brain issues and they don't know. And so I will do a talk on what do you call it? You know, how to rehabilitate. You can, because that is my journey. I've had to do a lot of rehabilitation, how to rehabilitate brain issues with naturally, you know, without medication, because that was what I had. I didn't want to use medication. And so it has been a miracle for me to have had a PhD and to be having a doctorate. That is the greatest miracle, to show that you can rehabilitate the brain. So as we round up keys to intimacy, there are 5 these areas, you know, for building intimacy. So we are bringing it together, and don't forget the part 3. Part 3 is going to be explosive. Please invite people. It's going to be explosive. Invite people, but tell them to watch part 1 and part 2, because in part 3, we are going to bring everything together. We are going to go into the sexual anatomy and look at anatomy also, because, you know, we need to understand these things. You know, when I finished my PhD in counseling, I felt, you know, I cannot just be helping you heal if I don't really understand the body. That's why I decided to go for a second doctorate, because I felt everything worked together. The body, you know, and the mind and the anatomy and the physiology, I really need to understand. That's me. Not everybody is like that, but that is me. So it's keys to intimacy: the eye, the mouth, the hand, the ears. You know, the eyes are important. How many of you, you know, this is an adult workshop. How many of you, you know, I mean, you turned and you looked at somebody, and your eyes locked with that person, and it was as if electric shock was passing from your head to your toe. You know, if you have experienced that before, just say to me, I did, you know, just comment on my comment box. The power of the eyes. We think it is only for meeting for the first time. You should be using that in marriage. The eyes should be connecting. You should be speaking to each other. You should be gazing, love, you know, into it, you know, from time to just turn and just look and just hold that look. Don't say, why are you looking at me? No, because it is so there's a transmission taking place. It's called the eye lock. You know, there's the power in looking, in just gazing at each other. You know, there's for those that are already married here, when after this, you know, just you know, if your spouse is willing, just go and say, and just, you know, maybe lie on top of your spouse and say, let's gaze into each other's eyes. Let's just gaze. And the next time, come and tell me what happened. You know, I'm interested. I'm a scientist, you know, but it is if that was happening before, you know, when maybe the first time you met, the second time, it's not, you know, that you just gazed into each other's eyes and there was this chemistry and there was all of this. how much more using it in marriage to strengthen intimacy? But for that to happen, you must look attractive. We all like beauty. I hate it when people tell me, I'm sorry to say, sometimes I get angry at this, that God looks at the heart. And I agree that God looks at the heart totally. But the reality is that we need to be attractive. God made attractive things. God made the beautiful trees. If he didn't like beauty, he made gold, he made diamond, he put it on the ground. Look at those flowers, look at the rose. Look at a rose garden. People that have dreamt about heaven, look at when they tell you, they said they see like flowers, beautiful flowers all over the place. Look at, we need to invest time for our spouse to be attractive to each other. Just because we are married does not mean we need to continue to be, as much as, it's not like, your life is going to be all about that. But it is a sacrifice. That's why the Bible says that he that is married, that is if you want to be single, be single. You spend time loving God and facing God. But it says that he that is married, in the book of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 7, is focusing on pleasing the spouse. It is a responsibility. How can I be? What is my spouse looking for? What is it? It is important. The eyes is important. The eyes is a gateway to the soul. And so seeing things that are beautiful is important. You might have to go through you don't have to have many cloths. The way you combine them, the way just taking more attention. Do you dress to please your spouse? Do you communicate love, tenderness through your eyes? The eyes lock gate. The mouth is another key part for intimacy. What can kill, give life, build, destroy? Are your words creating the right environment? Remember that, can you remember that we also talked about the temporal lobe, the part of the brain near the ears is very, there's the words you say go straight, affects the brain, affects our brain. I'm going to move the scent. It is an important component of the art of romance. Smell can be an excellent inlet to passion. It stimulates area in the brain that affects the way we feel and react. Just think of the way you respond to a smell of bread. Do you allow your spouse to choose the scent and soap they like to smell? Do you just say, I'm used to this perfume, I'm used to this soap. And then the soap, your spouse doesn't like it and you are using it. It will not bring intimacy, because remember what I said, emotions and memory. Immediately that person smells that soap, the person is turned off. Or you say, I take your bath. No, I don't want to take my bath. We do not live for ourselves alone. That is so important. If we choose to marry, because nobody is forcing anybody to marry. If we choose to marry, we cannot not anymore, this is the way I like my things, and so it doesn't matter. No. That person, the Bible says that your body is no longer your own. It now belongs to the other person. So if the person says, I don't like that underwear, I don't like that underwear, every time I see it, it turns me off, whether male or female. It's not only a female thing. Men, I hope I have enough men on this year. If your wife does not like that boxer short, throw it away. Throw it away. Don't say, I love this boxer short. If it turns her off, that might be one important key. You might be surprised that you change that boxer short and you'll be amazed at just the level of intimacy that begins to build up. Because the brain is powerful. The brain can just lock up things. The brain can block every time that you are doing every other thing, but the person that sees that boxer short, the brain just blocks every other thing. Listening to your spouse can help bring intimacy. Couples need to learn to listen when they are burning to talk. The Bible says, be slow to speak, swift to listen, be slow to speak, swift to listen. Say it 10 times. You know, the gateway of sound. Sound can mean music playing softly or the way you whisper your spouse's name. Music can create the atmosphere for intimacy. The tone of voice can either build or tear down intimacy. I'm from the South, and Southerners, our voice is, but I used to just like listening to the Northern women. Hey, yeah, chicken, you know, gentle, quiet voice. You know, I started practicing, and I hope my voice will also be like that one day. Nice, quiet voice. Finally, as we round up, touch. Touch the hand. Remember, we saw that the hand is the part of the brain that interprets the hand, and it is so big. We communicate support, appreciation, sexual interest, affection, playful through touch. Touch not only communicates verbal communication, it conveys a message of its own. Touch is 10 times stronger than verbal emotion. This is the greatest form of communication in marriage, especially non-sexual touch. One way to use touch is through the art of massage and non-sexual caress. A research project in orphanages where infant mortality was within 1 year was between 90% shows that the people were dying because they were not stimulated. They were not touching them. Because it was an orphanage, they didn't want to touch the babies because they didn't want them to bond. So they were not touching them. These babies were dying. My brethren, touch is so important to our mental health. That's why the hand, the homunculus of touch is so big. Touch can keep alive or can kill. Can give life, sorry. And that is why, you know, some people are averse to touching because of some of the things they've been through. It is not normal. It's important to seek help. If you find out that you can't have people touch, you can't have your spouse touch you, it's not normal. There's definitely something going on. You might be very extra sensitive, you know, because there are issues going on. Because couples, one of the things that helps you with bonding, look at the homunculus, is touch. Random casual touch does not have the same effect on either the person giving the touch or the recipient as touch that is offered in a focused, conscious, and mindful way. Let your spouse teach you what pleases them. Do not assume or use past experiences. That brings me to what Toyosi said. Everybody is different. We can only learn. It's not from blue film. It's not even from your past experience. The best, and this is where I'm going to finish, the best experience, the best teacher is you. You are the best person that can teach your spouse. And in part 3, we are going to look at how you do that. How do you teach your spouse what is pleasing to you? Your bed, your marriage bed, is your university of intimacy. It is your laboratory of experiment, where you both find out what is important, what is good for each other, in a non-threatening way, in a way that does not pull down the other. I said sex is the culmination of touch. This is the climax of all the gates and should not be engaged until all the other gates have been adequately engaged. As couples build intimacy through different gates, they will find more fulfillment in their sexual lives. The sexual organs take the final journey internally to culminate the oneness established through engaging all the other senses. Thank you. Remember, sexual intimacy is not about genital stimulation, but engaging all senses in childlike learning and discovery. Your spouse is the specimen in your lab. Study the specimen well. This is where I end this presentation today. Let me have any questions and comments. You are too funny. Ultimate disrespect. To not love or acknowledge your beautiful self is the ultimate disrespect to your creator. I agree with you. I missed. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, okay, there's some message. You can unmute yourself if you want to say something. Today we actually went up. Oh, thank you. Clap for me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am glad. My joy is to hear testimonies. That's what will make me happy. Is when you go and use some of these things, please, when you use them, please send me a message, send me messages, email me. And let me know that it has worked. That is what I want to hear. I need to know that you are using this and it's working.
I'd like to say something.
Okay, Uche.
I think these two presentation and the third one should be factored in most counseling, marriage counseling courses in churches.
Yes.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And maybe at some point soon, I'll be able to write a book. And
watch the YouTube channel. It is going to do a lot good.
Yes. So share the YouTube channel with churches. Let them incorporate it. Let them use it. I'm fine with that. Apart from accidents that affect the brain, violence and marital abuse can damage. Of course, the brain. I said to you, the brain is like butter. You know, all kinds of things can damage it, and that's why it's in a vault, because God wants us to treat it with care. You know, so violence in the home can damage it. Thank you, my brother, Bishop Benedict. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please remember, let me just a few announcements as we go. Just a few announcements. One, let me see. So part 3, we are going to be looking at male sexual anatomy and physiology, female sexual anatomy and physiology. We are going to look at, and as it relates to sex, intimacy. So I'm not just teaching, please take note of that, as it relates to the issue of intimacy. So it's going to be very interesting. It's not biology class. I'm going to be talking about the sexual circle that I showed at the beginning. We are going to be looking at how to put all of this together for wall socket sex. And then we are going to look a bit more about abuse of sex, because, you know, intimacy, God wants you, the more you have a good sexual relationship, the more you want to bond. You will run away from the things that, you know, does not bond, you know, you don't enjoy. Now, we have events coming up that I want to quickly share with you. Some people have been asking me, we also want to learn to teach these things. You know, next year, I'm going to be starting classes for those that want to really become proficient, because it's not good enough for, you know, we need to multiply. and everywhere. So we are having one training on the 16th and 17th of January. This one is just using assessment for successful premarital and marital ministry. If you want to learn to use this for 2 days, there's a link for registration. Tope, place the link. And the way we have put it is to put a range of payment depending on what you are able to pay. There's a range because I want as many people to be able to attend it. I don't put the value of my courses. If I have to put the value, you won't be able to pay for my courses. And so, but if you don't register, if you register just 2 weeks to the event, then you are going to be paying the premium. So we want to encourage that if you want to attend this, please register long before, because the pricing will change 2 weeks before the event to the full range. Right now, it is a range based on, be true to yourself, be honest with yourself and say, what can I really afford? Also, I'm going to be having a certification course starting in next year, March, that is going to be for a year and for 16 months. But it's going to be in phases, phase 1, phase 2, and you can stop at any phase. It's called the Healthy Family Development Certification. And I'm going to be teaching, all of this, will be broken down in a way that you are able to teach it. And so look out for that information on that. Next week, on the 13th, the next part 3 of this is on the 20-something, I'm not sure, but I think is in the flyer. But next week, we are going to move away from sexual intimacy, and we are going to be looking at how to assess the health of your marriage. So you can be married or single, working with couples. How can we assess how healthy our marriages are? So that is for next week, Sunday, 13th, how to assess for the health of marriages.